Well, first of all, thank you all so much for your generous applause, your welcome. Thank you to the National Restaurant Association for sponsoring something that is so incredibly inspirational. Not that our work isn't inspirational every day and supported by the National Restaurant Association. A huge thanks to Ecolab, to PepsiCo, to American Express for making something like this happen, because it doesn't happen on its own. The biggest thanks, actually, I've been doing this for a really long time, goes to my wife, because without her, it takes 200% to do what we're doing, and she has been in lockstep with me all the way through all of this. And I'm standing up here, but she could easily be standing up here, because we share vision, we share commitment, we share love for what we do. She married into it, I grew up in it, and sometimes it doesn't work out that you would share so much of the same vision. But I'm a lucky man for two reasons. One is what you heard me say up there, that I get to bring joy to people's lives every day. The second reason that I'm such a lucky person is that I found somebody to share a vision with. And together with this real dogged determination, we just took the next right step each time. And that's what I always tell people. They say, did you have this vision when you started this, that you were going to do all of these things? And I said, no, not at all. I just needed to take the next right step every day. And I thought about that. I really thought, what is our next right step? I talked with my wife about that. I was able to share with other people that I work with, what's our next right step? And every time that we would come to a juncture, we would take a step that would always involve creating community. So you saw about the Frontera Farmer Foundation. So that started off really as a no-interest loan program, because I had to move back from Mexico, and I had discovered that the best food in Mexico always came from the places that had the best local agriculture. I got to Chicago, where my wife's family all is, and we decided to settle there and see if we could make a go of it there. But I realized that at that point we had no farmers markets, we had no local produce that I could work with. And I thought, how can we become a great restaurant city? How can I have a great restaurant if I am not related at all to what's grown locally? So over the years, we developed this no-interest loan program as we would find one farmer, and they were mostly just like startups, and they didn't have what it took to grow to the next level. And we said, can we help you with that? And so we started this program where we would give them a loan, and the next year they could pay us back, and they could pay us back in product if they wanted to. And as we saw that growing and growing, we decided to morph that into a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, so that instead of loaning money to these farmers that were struggling terribly to make ends meet, to actually grow their farms, that we would give them grants. And what we discovered, and those of us that work in worlds that deal in millions of dollars will be surprised by this. And you heard Marty talk about this, but most farms, what they need is something that's around $10,000 to jump them to the next level. They will tell you that it would take them 5 years to save $10,000 so that they could invest that back into their farms. And I said, we work in a business that is, well, it's luxurious when it comes to that kind of money. And I said, we've got guests in our restaurant that would love to support this kind of stuff. So we started having just one fundraiser every year. And that's how we have raised all of this money over these last 10, 12 years. And we've raised $2 million just from the generosity of our guests, because when you create community in a restaurant, people feel obliged to take care of each other. So this is the thing that always comes back to me when I think about what I do for a profession. I create community. And we create community in so many different ways. We create community by just simply bringing friends and families around a table so that they can talk to each other face to face. We create communities when we go out into our communities and we volunteer. And you know the restaurant industry is the most generous at volunteering, supporting local groups of all sorts. We're the first ones to come out and say, yes, we're going to help you out. We create communities by supporting local farms. And those farmers, in turn, create community where they live and where they're bringing their goods into farmers markets. To be involved in the restaurant community is to be involved in creating community, both within our restaurants, as we have been so incredibly inspired this evening. We create community within our restaurants. We also create community in the communities that we do our business. And yes, we work in a business. I understand that. And we have to be really good at it, or we can't do the other stuff. And if we're really successful in our businesses, it gives us the opportunity to invest in creating even more community. My grandmother always said the only way to keep a family together was to be a good cook. That you had to bring everybody together around the table. And if you weren't a good cook, and I don't really know if she was a really good cook, but she sold it really well. She would say, oh, isn't this the best pot roast you've ever had? This is the best fried chicken in the whole wide world. And we would say, yes, Grandma, and we would love it. And we would gather around her table. And that was an important part of my growing up, was understanding that aspect of hospitality, that aspect of creating community just within our family. Then my father taught me one other thing, and I've been so touched by every single person that has talked this evening. And so many of them said, oh, I learned something from my parents. And I think back about what I remember learning so well from my father in our family barbecue restaurant in Oklahoma City. We opened at 11 o'clock. And he taught me to go and stand at the door at 10:45 and just stand there and let your eyes fall on everything that your customers were going to see, because you wanted them to feel welcome. And so he would stand there and look at everything and point out to me things that needed to be attended to in the right way. And then we would walk back into the kitchen and we would taste everything. Because he said, if it doesn't taste great, sort of echoing my grandmother's words, if it doesn't taste great, they're not going to be excited to come back. Obviously, that is something that's a hallmark of our industry. And I thought to myself, wow, it's that little exercise of standing at the front door in the place of our guests and saying what's going to make them feel most welcome here is something that I have carried through my whole life. I still do that. I mean, I've been at this for a long time, but my focus every day in our restaurants is to make sure that I'm looking at it from our guest standpoint so that they will feel welcome, so that there would be a great sense of hospitality. And then, of course, the guests are generous to whatever crazy idea we come up with to give back to our community, they want to support as well. Whether it be our scholarship program, which we raise the money on for that thing by adding $1 to every bottle of wine price in our restaurant. I mean, what an easy thing to do. And it's worked out really incredibly well. And then our restaurant matches those dollars that our guests give us in the $1 a bottle program. And we started that one because I was really upset that all these kids that were coming out of our really great culinary program at Kendall College in Chicago, none of them were Hispanic. And so I started sort of investigating and seeing, well, why aren't any of these Mexican-American kids coming out of the program? And it was, well, it was too expensive for them. So I said, well, we'll fix that. We'll start a scholarship program for the Chicago public school system for Mexican-American kids to apply for, and then we can send them all the way through culinary school, and we can give them internships at our restaurant. We can take them to Mexico on our staff trips. We can do that. And we can create community that way. And out of that program has come so much talent. But it just meant that all we had to do was wake up, look and see what was around us and say we can do something about that. To me, that's the true essence of hospitality, is to look around and say, what can we do? And that's what we do in our profession every day. I am incredibly humbled to be here in front of you. I am especially incredibly humbled to be in front of all these recipients this evening. It's so incredibly inspirational, and it makes me want to go back and work twice as hard. So I thank you all so very much.